You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Orada Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru aksın kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol. Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Roma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 54 of the Black Eagles podcast. I am your host, Sinan, live from New York City. And today, I am flying solo. Kaan had some family duties to attend to. And it's quite late at night right now as I record. So I didn't even want to bother Uzcan. It's, I think, 3 a.m. in Scotland at the moment. Although I'm alone, one special feature today will be sound bites from the match itself, from our own Emre Hasturk, who's been on the show on numerous occasions. And then he will follow that up with an After the Beep. And, of course, Kaan will do a little after the beep as well, so you'll hear his voice for those of you who miss him. Anyway, moving on. We're gonna go over the match from I guess we would say earlier today. For you guys, it's tomorrow, and by the time I get this thing done in post, who knows? But we'll say Friday the 25th was when a match was played against Erzurumspor, Büyükşehir Belediye Erzurumspor to be specific. I still don't know or quite understand if the original Erzurumspor was consolidated into this new, municipality version of the team. But anyhow, Erzurum came to Istanbul to play at the Vodafone Park. And the lineups, not too many surprises. For Beşiktaş, Loris Karius was in the goal, with Isimat Mirin and Necip on the back line. Perhaps a little surprise there. Adriano was on the left flank with Gökhan Gönül on the right. Dorukhan Tokuz and Gary Medel started in the center of the midfield with Ljajic as our attacking mid. Quaresma started on the left side and Jermaine Lenz on the right, which I've been a proponent of for some time. And of course, Burak Yilmaz started up front. As far as Erzurumspor goes, the only thing of note for me personally, anyway, was seeing Rashad Mohammed up front for them as their striker. He was a lone striker for them. You might remember that name from our match against Sarpsborg. He was kind of thrown in our side in both of those matches. So, Rashad Mohammed, welcome to Turkey. I guess we can say that. But anyway, let's cut to it. So I've told you the lineups. No surprises there, and I'll just run you right through it and then cut into the stats. So the timeline of events was fairly straightforward. It was just a slow first half, not much action, back and forth. The first half was something of a slogging affair, not much action in front of the goals. A couple yellow cards, one to Necip, one to Burak Yilmaz. The game came into the half at 0-0. Really kind of uneventful. A few attacking chances up front. Burak Yilmaz was almost sprung, I believe. But really, there was not much to speak of. The one prominent thing to occur may have been Nikola Isimat Mirin kind of coming down awkwardly. He looked to have been injured. He stayed on the pitch, but he was subbed out at the half. And it was an interesting sub. He was subbed out for Mustafa Pekdemek. An interesting substitution, perhaps signaling intent from Şenol Güneş. Definitely, it could be said there was not a lot of energy going forward. I think he probably presumed that Mustafa Pekdemek could install that, although I've gone on the record on numerous occasions on this podcast saying that I don't think Mustafa Pekdemek should be your miracle solution in 2019. Usually, I've been saying 2018 for so long, it's becoming kind of almost a reflex. But yeah, now in 2019, we're playing Mustafa Pekdemek and Necip, but still not a lot of action, which I'm not sure what he expected. In the 60th minute, Caner Erkin was brought in for Burak Yilmaz. Again, interesting subs. Khan made a note of this fact that perhaps Burak Yilmaz is on a minutes restriction as he gets back into form. He's got notorious injury issues, so perhaps they're just trying to ease him back into regular football. Fine, perhaps, but to bring in Caner Erkin was interesting. So first we bring in an extra striker for İsmet Miran, leaving us theoretically sort of weaker in the back. But then we bring in Caner Erkin for Burak Yilmaz, meaning now Mustafa Pekdemek is the lone striker for Beşiktaş at this stage. And of course, with Caner Erkin coming into the left back's position, that moved Adriano up into the center of the midfield. So things are getting wacky. Another yellow card in the 63rd minute, only 3 minutes after that sub. Rashad Mohamed leaves the match in the 68th minute for a fellow named Opseth, Christian Fardal Opseth, a Norwegian footballer. So it's interesting what Erzurum's doing. They seem to be raiding Northern Europe for players at the moment, which we'll see how that pans out for them. But anyhow, shortly after that substitution, in fact, as soon as play resumed, boom, a goal is scored. An own goal on Dorukhan Tokuz. This was probably one of the more baffling goals I've witnessed in all of my years as a Beşiktaş fan, as a football fan in general. It wasn't stunningly, brainless. It wasn't terrible in that regard. It was a fairly typical human error in a sense. Although, well, you know what? I don't want to spend time doing any sort of analysis right now. We're still just leading you through the match. Anyway, leave it to be said, a goal was scored, an own goal was scored, and Beşiktaş was down a goal in the 69th minute. A cross is sent in, deflects off Gary Medel, who defends fairly well. But it comes to a Erzurum player who's, I can't remember whose name it was because his name did not go on the sheet at the end. So he sends the shot in, not a particularly strong shot. It comes right to Necip's foot, but Necip just kind of, I don't know. I think he kicks at it, but he could have been just trying to stop it. Whatever it was fairly dysfunctional. Sort of smashes forward right into Dorukhan, who had also previously dove to try to block it in the first place. And there you have an own goal. In the 72nd minute, Gur is given a yellow card for Erzurum. In the 73rd minute, Gary Medel is given a yellow card for Beşiktaş. In the 78th minute, Kyle Larin comes in for Adriano. So now we've got another striker in there. At least Pekdemek isn't our sole hope up front. Although now Adriano's out, and I don't, it's really hard to say what's going on tactically, who's playing where. But clearly the intent is to get forward and attack. We are down a goal. And again, right as play resumes, bang, a goal is scored. Adem Ljajic sends in a floated sort of chip into the box. Dorkan Tokuz finishes with his head for his second career goal. Very nice. The game has been equalized. Beşiktaş is pressing. Things are looking good. To slow down the pace a little bit, Erzurum brings in a sub in Kone, who comes in for Sunu in the 79th minute. They quickly get a couple of yellow cards, including Sehic, their keeper, in sort of time wasting and trying to slow things down. They bring in another Northern European in Kanstrup, Pierre Kanstrup, who's Danish. Another one of these Northern European projects, I suppose. But they bring him in for Unlu in the 85th minute, still in this effort to try to slow things down because Beşiktaş is pressing. They're looking strong. They're finally putting that pressure on the goal that had been wanting this whole match, as is often the case. You know, when you go down when any team goes down a goal, it's going to bring energy to them naturally. And this did occur with Beşiktaş. But things would come to a grinding halt shortly thereafter when in the 87th minute, Ricardo Quaresma, and some speculate this could have been his final match in a Beşiktaş shirt, comes sliding in with a terrible, kind of typical sliding tackle from behind, gets himself red carded. Quaresma's out.
Mavi İstanbul.
Tides turn. I mean, not exactly. You couldn't say Erzurum suddenly starts putting pressure on the goal. 5 minutes of extra time are awarded. Opseth, who had just come in, got himself a yellow card. Whatever. The game ends 1-1 as a draw. Beşiktaş does not take advantage of having turned the tide with their goal. And so it ends with Beşiktaş getting only a point in this vital, pivotal home match against struggling, you know, at least on paper, looking to be relegation-bound Erzurumspor. I'd probably make the argument that Erzurumspor don't deserve to be considered relegation-bound inherently. You know, they have some fight left in them, plenty of season to go. Some teams are utterly collapsing right now in the Super League. I'm looking at you, Ankara Gücü. So Erzurumspor has a chance to maybe sneak their way out of that relegation zone. And good luck to them, despite their nicking a pretty big result against us and kind of damaging our run. Got to say they played fairly well, and they have done so all season. So good luck to them in staying up. That's all we have to say, and that's all we're going to see of them. But so yeah, that's all there is to say as far as that game goes. There's a 1-1 draw, and that's not the result that Beşiktaş would have hoped for. I will look at the stats of this match just to sort of piggyback on all those comments as to what happened, just to give you a more statistical outlook on it. Beşiktaş had 15 shots to Erzurumspor's 9. 5 on target, though, to their 3. Only 5 on target, I should say. So not a very good rate. Not a very efficient day in front of the goal for Beşiktaş. 64% of possession to Erzurum's 36. You'd expect that to some extent, given the fact that Beşiktaş were down a goal for a little stretch there, and because, of course, they're the dominant side in general. 503 passes completed by Beşiktaş to only 300 for Erzurumspor. Passing accuracy of 82% for Beşiktaş to their 68. 15 fouls committed by Beşiktaş to their 14. 4 yellow cards apiece. 1 red card for Beşiktaş. None for Erzurum. Only 1 offsides for Beşiktaş. 11 corners, however, to their 2. So the corners, on the one hand, suggest some impetus, although I would be willing to bet most of those corners were obtained very late in the game. But only 1 offsides, on the other hand, suggests maybe a lack of impetus, a lack of drive and push forward. Surprising given that Burak Yilmaz was such a notorious offsides, I don't even know what to call it, offsides or whatever. I'm not in the business of making up football vocabulary, at least not today, apparently. But yeah, not so good in regards to the fact that, again, you have a Beşiktaş side with a very clear advantage statistically, just not putting it together in the final third of the pitch. Khan and I have belabored this point for so long. These types of results have become so commonplace. But you have to look at the manager. You have to look at the lineups. You have to look at the substitutions. You have to look at the lack of soul. All of these things combine to getting you a poor result, and all of them kind of point to dysfunction up top. Poor decision making. First of all, I want to go on the record as saying that I find it absolutely absurd that we have a guy in the name of Enzo Rocco who's got a fairly storied career up till now, up till his arrival in Istanbul, who's being paid considerably by our club. He's among our top earners, to not play at all and to not be given a chance. And perhaps he's really thrown up some stinkers, in training, behind the scenes, when the cameras aren't rolling. But Necip's not the solution. And that kind of a fluke goal, you don't want to blame anyone. You can't blame anyone for that. Those things happen. That's human error. However, it needs to be noted that Necip has a propensity to, like, his finger is glued to the panic button. And so when it's time for him to take the ball calmly and make a decision that's efficient and intelligent and going to be productive, moving the ball forward, there's no way you can rely on him in those scenarios. And on the own goal, he did sort of misclear the ball. He just sort of took a kick at it, and that's fine. I mean, you're blocking a shot to some extent, though. It wasn't a very powerful shot. I really want to highlight that fact, because it's his errant sort of kicking the ball forward in that manner that then deflects it off of Dorukhan and then back into our goal. Of course, Dorukhan has some blame in that specific situation. And on the other hand, no one has any blame in that situation. They're both flailing at a ball that's coming in. Although, again, I think there's a way in which you can even clear the ball that's slightly less haphazard than Necip's approach every time, not just on the own goal. And beyond just clearing the ball on a shot like that, when he has possession of the ball, he still boots it forward somewhat wildly. It's a very old-fashioned sort of approach to defending, and I suppose it's probably appreciated in certain scenarios, but today was not one of those. Today is a match where Beşiktaş is dominating possession, needs to be building up attack and kind of coherently putting pieces together so that they're moving forward as a unit, so that they're in position to score ultimately, and that's clearly what they were not in position to do. Anyway, I'm going to keep today's episode real brief because there's not a lot to say, and we've got, so much attention to the John Okar episode. I still think we all need to be shoveling ourselves out of the rubble, as we consider how we're coming out of this position financially, as a club, how we're moving forward, how we're growing responsibly from here on out, how we're moving in the right direction. And so with all of that said, this week there's not a lot to say. We saw a result much like we've seen many other results that you can kind of point to ineptitude up top in our manager role. Şenol Güneş has been uninspired again. He seemed to have been pushed into trying things, and as a product, he found Güven Yalçın, he found Dorukhan Tokuz. But that's kind of where it ended, because he found some middling results as well, which apparently were enough to get Fikret Orman to offer him an extension, and the rest is history. But let's talk about today. Let's talk about today's match. Let's talk about a man of the match, a highlight. And let's talk about a stinker of the match, a low light. My man of the match, my highlight has to go, and I'm going to start on a positive note here because I've been somewhat dire until this point. My highlight has to go to Dorukhan Tokuz, who not only scored twice, if you count the own goal, but was very, if anyone did have soul, if anyone was flinging around the pitch, going all in, committing to every aspect of both attack and defense, which you need out of someone in the center of your midfield, that would be Dorukhan Tokuz. And he actually showed more of that than he's shown in previously. In the last match, he started to flash that, where he was really flinging himself around the pitch. And again, with this match against Erzurum, that was the case. Really, you can't say enough about how fantastic Dorukhan has been up to this point. Just a great prospect, a great move that was under the table. Just goes to show you never write someone off because you've never heard of them, just because they're a small profile player or coming from a small profile club. Whatever it may be, here we have a clear-cut example of two guys. One in the way of Guven Yalchin, who came from a very well-established club abroad, but from their youth setup, so you couldn't maybe anticipate so much. And in the case of Dorukhan Tokuz, Eskişehirspor is a very storied club in the Turkish sphere of football. But beyond that, maybe not so much. No one had too many expectations for this kid coming into the season. But here we are. This is maybe his second highlight in a row, maybe even third. I'm not sure. He's been fantastic. Besides that, I don't have many more plaudits to give. The defense was actually generally solid, despite Necip being in there in the back. That one goal was a fluke. Besides that, I didn't feel that Erzurum really put huge amounts of pressure on the goal. Karius did have two big saves that could have turned this match in ways that we've seen matches get turned previously by opponents on sort of fluky, out-of-the-blue goals, much like the ones that Karius saved today. So he was okay. In general, the defense was solid. If I had to find a low light, it would not be among them. And I give a tip of the cap and a kind of honorary mention to the whole unit in general. And especially considering the fact that you've got Adriano in and out, Nicolas Isimat Mirin in and out, Medel coming into the back, Adriano coming up front, and then Janer in the despite all of that fluctuation, there was enough in the back to put together a fairly solid game. Maybe Erzurum isn't the best rival in that regard to test your defense against, but still, they're a Super League side with professional footballers, and the defense held up. As such, though, you've got to say, as a low light, today our attack was lacking so much. The build-up was non-existent for the most part. Jermaine Lenz was a bit of a headless chicken, lots of running, but little result. Quaresma was, I'd say Quaresma gets my low light today. Obviously, the red card was terrible, especially considering this very well may have been his last match. But even beyond that, besides the red card, despite the fact that he killed all of our momentum in a very pivotal moment when Beşiktaş truly was building up finally and starting to pose some threat to their goal, he really killed that with that red card. So that was despicable in and of itself. But besides that, he was very ineffectual all match. Yeah, I mean, if that's how he wants to leave the club, if he wants to make it a kind of, what's the point of keeping me around if I'm going to play like this, end quote, kind of situation, so be it. It would be an incredible shame if that were the case. I don't think it was intentional. I think that's a little bit conspiracy theory-ish, get your tinfoil hat out for that sort of thing. I just think he was frustrated by a generally poor match all around. He was, the ref was calling a lot of ticky-tacky fouls, slowing down the match often, and of course it's always going to be the benefit of the weaker side if they're slowing down a match and disrupting play. But as many clubs have done against Beşiktaş, that's almost something you can do tactically at this stage, where you can intentionally slow a match down by committing fouls, knowing you're not going to be penalized too harshly because the ref is allowing certain things. But then, of course, you can't say one deserves a yellow card for a small ticky-tacky foul. But if they've committed 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're starting to see a trend, you're starting to see a deliberate attempt to affect a match in that way, perhaps you do need to stand up and say, look, guys, stop this, or I'm going to start calling things a little more harshly, because we're playing football here. We're not, this isn't stop and go traffic for the BQE. Sorry, that's the New York highway. Anyway, but so yeah, my low light probably has to go to Quaresma, with honorary mention to pretty much everyone. Even Ljajić today, and of course he's creative and sort of a spark mentally. Even he just has a flair for the one-touch pass and that kind of thing. But even he was lacking today, I thought. I would say that this was probably his worst match with the club so far. But I've been generally very positive about his performances. So even within that, I don't even want to really give him an honorary mention as a low light, because there were much worse than him. It starts with the wings. Again, there was an over-reliance on crosses, which is... I don't know if someone's telling Quaresma to do this, or if this is just his instinct. If he's gotten enough assists by just hucking them into the box like that he just goes for it, like, without even thinking twice now. But whatever the logic is, the result is not panning out. Quaresma, you, sir, are my low light of the match. Besides that, all around, Burak Yilmaz was not particularly strong. He's clearly still settling, but he did finally, start to connect with passes a little bit more. So you can only imagine it's just a matter of time before he gets onto the other side of some nice balls from Ljajić, or hopefully the guys on the wings get it together and start putting in some good crosses at some point. But yeah, that you can almost take for granted, honestly, that Burak Yilmaz will likely settle in that regard. And I'm saying this as a massive hater. So again, not low light worthy. Gary Medel also. I would actually see more than Lens. I think Ricardo Quaresma and Gary Medel, for me, are competing for that real low light position in yesterday's match, or whatever day it is for you listeners. Because yeah, they were both just. It's like they've got their mind somewhere else. I mean, Gary Medel is, I think, just being played incorrectly positionally, and moving back to the back line helped, I think, a little bit. When Pektemek was subbed in for Isimat Mirin, he's better back there, and he actually was fairly stabilizing in a sense. Lots of silly mistakes, also clumsy fouls. He also earned himself a card. So yeah, it's not looking good from the perspective of a midfield, from the perspective of a coherent midfield in particular. But there we have it. Bad match, poor result. And so here we are on the standings. Currently, Beşiktaş is in 4th place. On paper, there are a number of teams that could pass them still, going all the way back down to like Antalyaspor. But it's not likely. In fact, I think Antalyaspor is playing Konya, for example, who could also pass us. So only one of them can pass. All right, so the lowest Beşiktaş can drop is into 7th place by the end of the weekend. But I don't know how likely that is. A number of our rivals will have to win, including Konyaspor, Trabzonspor, Kasımpaşa, or Antalya. Like I said, Konya and Antalya are playing. So whoever wins that match will pass us. Or if they draw, maybe not. But it's not looking good. It's not looking good. We could end this weekend in 7th place, looking way up. We could be down 11 points to Başakşehir. And even if Kasımpaşa were to beat them, we'd still be down 8, which is, at least I guess we gained a point on them. But not a good weekend. Terrible weekend, in fact. Galatasaray has already won. So that's not going to go well. Galatasaray beat Göztepe. Previously, I just saw that result. It's not good. Things are not good. Things need to be changed. Khan and I have said this many times. It's not likely they're going to be changed, and this is the problem. I don't know how we stand going forward in regards to making a change, the change that would probably be required for this team to really turn things around. But so be it. That's life. That's life for Beşiktaş right now, for us fans. Anyhow, next weekend, next Sunday, Beşiktaş will be in Antalya, a beach weekend for them. I don't know if they've earned it, but they're going to spend the next weekend in Antalya, playing Antalyaspor. Sunday, 11 a.m. here in New York City, which is, I believe, 5 p.m. there. So, 5 p.m. on Sunday for you based in Turkey. I think that's 4 p.m. for the Central Europeans among you. Anyhow, however that shakes out, check your schedules, check your local times. Hopefully Beşiktaş will get a result against Antalyaspor. That is going to be a big match, as they all are from now on. Antalyaspor, should they defeat Beşiktaş, will have more points than them in the standing. Beşiktaş could drop into I don't even know, 8th place or something. So let's of course hope for the best, and also hope for some good results for the rest of this weekend. But yeah, let's do this, guys. Let's get behind this team and push them to the final hurdle, hopefully in good standing. One last thing before you guys go, make sure to stay for the hashtag after the beep. Once again, thank you to Emre Hasturk for all of these sound bites that you've been hearing throughout this episode, and he's going to weigh in with some thoughts on the match as well. As we move into the hashtag after the beep post theme song, and then after he says his word or two about the match, you'll hear Khan. So stay tuned for the after the beep today. We've got that segment back. As always, follow us on Twitter at Eagles_podcast. Follow our mothership, Beşiktaş International, at Beşiktaş_INT for all the latest news, 24/7, up to the minute. We've got a gang of goons on the job, tweeting constantly all the latest, translating everything that's coming in. So yeah, follow us there, of course. Follow me at Sir_writes_a lot. Follow, and I don't write a lot, so I should probably fix that handle, but follow Khan at Razerian, Razzerian. And that's it. Stay tuned for more from us here at the Black Eagles podcast, hopefully with better news to report and with Khan to help me report it. Until the next time, as always, go Beşiktaş!
Hey guys, 90 minutes done. We waited long for this. We missed Beşiktaş, but team's not here. Cheno's not here. Not much to talk about this game. I mean, the fans were terrible, the team terrible. Şenol's decisions terrible. It's just all around. It was terrible. So I guess it was deserved. Not much to say. I don't know why Burak came off. Why Pektemek played instead of Ozzy. Why he kept Lens on. Although he was good for like 5-10 minutes, but that's it. A lot of whys. This game's all because of Şenol. Everyone's unhappy here. Next week, Burak's suspended, so I don't know why Güven's not playing either. So we have to get rid of Şenol first. Oh, and also Quaresma can go to Porto and do whatever the hell he wants.
Well, another disappointing result for us. 1-1 at home to Erzurumspor. A match we should have always won, but it was just one of those games where the ball didn't seem to want to go in. I think by no means did we play like an amazing match, but I thought we started really well, and we pushed them back a lot. Their goalkeeper Ibrahim Sage made so many great saves. And then they score at a very unfortunate time, like at the 73rd minute or something. A complete clutch of a goal. Like, of course it had to go off two players of our players. I don't know what to say about something like that. Up till then, I think they had one chance with Rashid Mohammed, of course, who we remember from Salzburg, which was a good chance for them. But that was really it. And we tested their keeper time and time again. We had good opportunities, but it just didn't want to go in. Fortunately, we got the equalizer, and then we were pushing, and I think we were going to get it, and then Quaresma happened. Late in the match, of course. You don't know if you're still going to get that goal, but we were pushing. We had the momentum in the match, and then Quaresma takes a typical Quaresma red card. And if that was his final match for the club, there's only two ways he had to go out: either scoring an amazing Trivela goal or getting that type of a red card. So I can't really think of any more fitting way for him to end his Beşiktaş career, really. Have to say, I was very annoyed with the referee today. Gave an absolute BS yellow card to Burak, which will see him suspended for the next game away at Antalyaspor. Clear. First he gives a foul, which was never a foul, and then Burak turns around and he barely gestured. Like, if you know Burak Yilmaz and you know the type of reactions he can have towards referees at times, and he, especially when he was the Galatasaray, always getting away with it without getting cards. And then this was nothing. The ref just had a hard on for him. It was so obvious. Oh, that was just absolutely disgusting. And the ref kind of annoyed me throughout the game. The result is not on him, but he was so annoying. Every time there was any form of a 50-50 duel, a physical contact, and one of their players went down, immediately he'd give a foul. On the other end of the spectrum, he'd constantly wave play on when we were, when we get like interesting positions and one of our players gets brought down around their box. He just felt like an absolute dick today, the ref. But obviously, it's not that he impacted the scoreline or anything like that. So we have to, it was just one of those guys that wanted to make a statement. That yellow card for Burak was clearly one of those, hey, look, I have the biggest dick around, and I'm gonna swing it around a little bit. That was that type of. It's good to see that we can have because I think he's a relatively young referee. We're gonna have another asshole like that for the foreseeable future in the league. Okay, otherwise, I think it was undeserved. We deserved 3 points today. Very unlucky. We were very unlucky, but It's the story of our season. Okay, now I have to go because my kid is screaming at me to put the dog in the bench. Ooh.
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.